Welcome to the SOULFAM Podcast. On today's episode, we have the great return of William Lam, who is the founder and creator of Upgrade, which is a phenomenal new way to upgrade your life in so many aspects: your romance, your career, your money, your life skills, your family. William has reached out to push the boundaries of upgrading your life, and he has very graciously returned to the SOULFAM Podcast for another episode to carry forth with his instruction about how Upgrade works, how you can benefit from it, and how it's really a life-altering, maybe world and universal altering method. Welcome back, William. How are you today?
Good. It's good to be back. Great to see you guys.
Great to see you. So we left off about a month or so ago, maybe a little longer. And, you're always a busy guy. You've got a lot of things going on. You work with clients on a private basis. You hold group sessions. I've been fortunate enough to be on one of the virtual sessions, which was really phenomenal, I have to say, and really engaging. And it's one of those things where you get a little taste of it and you just want more of it. So,
nice.
Curious. Yeah, it's really true. So really felt a lot of things.
Which one were you on? Did you happen to be on the 4-hour one that we did last? That was a really long one.
It was tea and meditation, I believe. It was probably, it's probably actually in March. So it was before David came on board to teach, and it was like a Saturday session.
Got it. I see. You were about to ask me something. Go ahead.
Well, so I just we want to kind of catch up where we left off. And the other part is that we really want to know what you've been up to lately, what's going on with Upgrade, what are you into right now, what are you offering all of your clients? And of course, we probably need to remind our listeners and viewers what Upgrade is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, where did we leave off? I think I left off, we had just talked about, I designed the one and, design even down to the nose, design everything that I could think of. And then I set a date, and it was 5 months. And in 4 months and 3 weeks, I found her, we got engaged. And what was wild was the day I finished the first iteration of my design, she actually broke up with her fiance the same time. And so fast forward, I thought, this couldn't have been just a coincidence. There's got to be something I could do to find out if I can replicate this. And I decided I'm going to repeat what I did, but in a different context. And I started testing it in terms of work, because how wonderful would it be to be able to have the people you want to work with literally be designed by you, and you don't have to put up with people you don't want to work with, and you're simply just working with what you want. And so I started to do that, and I knew that designing clients aren't like designing the one romantically, because you don't really want just one client. So your design has got to be a bit more broad. So I reduced the number of items that I have in terms of attributes down to about 25. And I found that over the years has, it's been the best number to, target. And very quickly I found my very first client. And it was within a couple weeks. And it was exactly as I designed him. And then one of the great attributes I happen to have included was someone who loves to refer me people. And as I did, and, talk with this client, I found myself getting a lot of referrals. So much referrals that it took me about 2 years to work with all these people. Yeah, so that was awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I think every business in America would like to say something like that they have that kind of return on their investment and their process of creation. It's pretty amazing.
That's hard to, I mean, how do you put something you don't want? I think we talked about this last time, but do you write something you don't want as a client attribute? Like, do not want people who text me at 3 a.m. For non-urgent reasons. Yes, if it's urgent, I understand, but like, do not want 3 a.m. text messages with "Where have you pitched me in the last 6 months?"
Oh, since the unconscious mind is not very good at taking critical, in terms of critical processes, it doesn't do critical thinking very well, meaning it doesn't know how to remove or remove the negation and then translate. It doesn't do that very well. The unconscious mind, if you say don't think of a pink elephant, it'll give you a pink elephant. So if you say I don't want someone to call me at 3 a.m., there's a high chance, not saying that there's always going to be, the negation is going to be ignored, not necessarily the case, but the unconscious mind has a high likelihood of it not interpreting it the way you consciously does. So ideally, you would want to translate it before you write it down. And to translate it into language that your unconscious mind gets would sound something like, I want someone who's respectful of my boundaries, who would call me between the hour of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
So what you do want. That makes sense. I haven't had that in a number of years, but it's interesting that you could use your design to sort of attract the kinds of clients.
Yeah, because we naturally do design who we want to work with, but oftentimes it's not very conscious. Oftentimes it's due to pain that we experience from a scenario we don't like, and or something that brings us great pleasure. But oftentimes they're not extreme enough to move the needle. So if we do the design process and clearly communicate with the unconscious ahead of time, then we will save ourselves years.
What do you mean it's not painful enough or pleasurable enough for the conscious mind to, the unconscious mind to grasp it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, happy to explain. So for example, if someone calls you at 3 a.m. consistently, that's painful. You don't want to do that. And then all of a sudden your unconscious mind is like, no, I can't be missing my sleep like that. I gotta find someone who doesn't do that. And then you translate that to someone who only calls me at a certain hour. And this can happen naturally, but it just takes much longer. And then on the pleasure side, it's like, oh, every time, I'm just giving you a very generalized, obviously hypothetical scenario. Let's say you have a client who every time meet with you and they're wearing a green jacket. And every time this green jacket client shows up, they pay you really well. You get a lot of, success. Your unconscious mind might naturally be tuned to looking for people who wear green jackets due to the pleasure of you getting paid. But that may not be logical, nor is it potentially productive. So you want to design clients who pay me consistently rather than people that wear green jackets. But the unconscious mind doesn't know how to do that critical thinking piece usually.
So does this require a lot of discipline? Because I find myself sort of doing this and then, my thoughts get scattered or my feelings get scattered so that I'm no longer concentrating on what it is I want or what it is that's probably going to serve me best. Does it require a certain amount of discipline and strength to achieve this?
So the answer is yes and no. Yes, only in the beginning, in the sense that when you're designing, you need to sit down and design. And because the piece of paper and your pen function as a symbolic creation of what you want in the physical. So you're basically taking your mental idea, your creation in the mind, and edging it into the physical world. So of the millions of thoughts you could have during this day, you're choosing to only move these ones into the physical. Your unconscious mind is going to take it more seriously. So as soon as you realize that it doesn't take a lot of discipline at all to do the design process, it's really a selection process. The design process is a selection process, basically showing your mind, this is what I want you to bring into the physical. Do this for me now.
To just be quiet because our feelings dumb, and should we ignore them and just use our mind because it feels that way sometimes?
Could you tell me more?
Let's see here. Let me reframe. Do feelings, negative or positive, what role do those play in the design process? I think I remember you saying something where you had to be specific enough in your visualization or design so that your visualization could bring you pleasure. So you want to visualize something that, I guess it's triggering your reward system in your brain, maybe. My question is, somebody who has a lot of feelings throughout the day, do they pay attention to those when designing, or do they just focus on the mind and what they want to create?
So the feelings are simply a message delivery mechanism. So when you design, and let's say you're designing an ideal, customer or an ideal relationship, as you design, certain feelings may come up. And that's oftentimes because your mind's like, well, you had this experience. These people don't exist, right? Let's say someone, I've talked to a lot of men and women who, never design what they want in a relationship, and they're wonderful humans, but they find themselves in certain situations where they're in relationships that simply just didn't work. And so when I show them the design process, they're like, could it really be this easy? I'm like, let's start the design process and then see what comes up. As they design, the more they follow their heart and what they think is ideal, the more resistance sometimes it shows up in terms of the feeling. They're like, oh man, I've never had someone this loyal in my life. Like designing someone who's loyal, that seems impossible. And then the trauma, the negative emotions will show up. If that's the timing of the negative emotion, that means the message is coming up at that time for them to resolve it. Because the resolution will remove the blockage from them being able to meet that person. Now, if someone just happens to be in a negative state from whatever it is, that's also a message delivery mechanism. But oftentimes, it's like your phone, right? If you get a message, you get a notification. The notification doesn't go away, like the feeling doesn't go away until we read the message. So most humans don't have a problem with negative emotions. They have a problem with deciphering what message is hidden inside the emotion itself.
So in your program, how do you deal with those feelings? How does one who's in your program deal with those feelings? Is that something else that we have to tackle separately? Or is that something to simply kind of pay recognition to and move past?
So we actually take people through a 3-step process. So we actually have a training program called Resolution, and it has 2 meanings. The Resolution program, although is our entry program, it is one of our most significant programs because it serves 2 purposes. One is to resolve negative emotions and limitations, anything holding us back, but also to build the resolve to go for what you want. To have that resolve, hey, I'm going to have this, right? So it essentially works this way. There are 3 steps inside of this process of resolution. Step 1 is designing what you want and then attaching appropriate rewards to when you do get what you want. Because humans don't reward themselves enough. Even the most amazingly successful people, even the happiest of all people, even the people with the most supportive environments, they find themselves not rewarding themselves. We live in a society that's about other people. And so oftentimes when people have problems and conflicts, it starts from within because they're not taking care of themselves, right? Go ahead. Did you have a question?
Well, I find that really curious, as though we need that reflection in order to, maybe this is just my own personal thing, we need that reflection of other people in order to affirm that we're allowed to have this. So I find that really fascinating because I know you work with very high-end clients that they don't necessarily feel affirmed by reaching their goals. They feel affirmed when other people reflect that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting thing to observe because the culture around the world is we give other people gifts. How often do people go to the store and say, I'm buying myself gifts? And, it happens, but it's like, Christmas time, you go buy gifts for your family. It's not often that you're like, I'm going to go spend all the money and buy gifts only for myself. That's not usually how it works, right? So humans have been conditioned and trained since the beginning to, and I know this is a generalized statement because there are people out there that are selfish. That being said, humans have been conditioned to need permission to give to themselves. They have been conditioned to not reward oneself. They've been conditioned to wait for the teacher or the parents to say good job rather than giving themselves permission to be like, oh my gosh, I did a great job. This is amazing. I'm awesome.
Does it have to be a material thing? That's my sense, is that a lot of us probably get a sense of satisfaction or fulfillment or love and joy just from whatever it is we're trying to accomplish or do, even on a daily basis, that can be a reward in and of itself.
Love that question. The answer is absolutely not. It doesn't have to be just material. So material things are obviously tangible, or experiences are tangible, right? The state itself is intangible, but it can be felt indefinitely. Now, the beautiful thing about the reward process that we teach in Upgrade is you can have both. You can have a tangible outcome and a state. You can have both. So you're not limited to just feeling good. You can give yourself something or an experience on top of feeling good. And the goal is to chain that together, so much so that you have a goal that you set. And the goal in and of itself should bring you great pleasure in, achieving it. But then you give yourself another reward that brings you even more, feeling of pleasure and happiness and whatever it is. And then you attach that to helping you achieve another goal. And that other goal has something else attached to as a reward. And then it keeps going. So your life becomes an endless chain of pleasure.
It feels like it's an endless chain of my artistic expression, but it feels like an artistry. It's a mosaic of both fulfillment and perhaps material or whatever the creation may be. Maybe it's you want to create a nonprofit organization as a result of what you do, that it's both tangible and a feeling thing as well. It kind of meets other people's needs and yours, hopefully.
Yeah, people, with some of the students and clients that we've seen, like people can only buy so much of one thing or one category of things. And it's not so much the thing that we care about, it's more the tangible trackability, measurability of it that we care about. So whether it's, building an orphanage or, donating, budget to a, organization that doesn't have the budget to, who knows, maybe it's Mother's Day or something, and the organization doesn't have money to, say, we're going to serve the mothers in our organization, give them a gift. Or it could be like, hey, this neighborhood, there are a lot of single mothers. Can we do something for them? Or maybe it's someone that simply wants something that's very much a material possession. Everything in between, it's totally fine. It's just we need it to be measurable.
Right. And we need that twofold sort of confirmation.
Yeah, you don't want your mind to be like, oh, I did it, but then there's no way of tracking it.
Right. That's interesting. So our unconscious mind really needs that to make it, to connect it, for it to like sink into our certainly not a neuroscientist, to sink into the chemistry of our mind.
Yeah, think of it like this. If we're meant to be creators, and one of the aspects of creation is translating spiritual creation into the physical. So part of the reward process if we were to leverage that same principle, would be how can we give ourselves in this abundant universe something that's tangible that we can track to train the unconscious mind to create physically.
Really interesting. I find this super interesting because many of us are creative, and then there's others who are left-brained and very logically oriented, but we both have the same needs. Is that correct?
I mean, we both need food.
Just spitballing.
And
pardon me?
We both need food. We all need food and certain tangible things. I heard this statement one time from one of our students. Actually, I heard this a few times. You know, the need pyramid, right? From the basic needs all the way up to feeling important. If you flip that upside down, you begin to notice a very interesting phenomenon. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but take a look at that pyramid and then flip it upside down and then observe the world in that manner. You'll notice a completely different world.
What is that one? Is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it looks like a pyramid, but if you flip it upside down, it gives you a completely different perspective.
Does that mean we get our dessert first?
It's that some people has the need at the tip as the strongest thing. And so it's a paradox. It's really a paradox. The reversal is some people will give up the basic needs for those things at the tip.
Ugh, we got to stop doing that, Diana. We don't want to do that anymore.
I think I pretty much do that.
We want all the things. Yeah. It doesn't have to be one or
That's
the other.
fast.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Because and then their self-esteem and all that. Really, that's sometimes more important for some people than their physiological needs. And so you'll see, and to translate that even further, I would say some people value spirituality more so than physical success, and some people value physical resources more than spirituality. But the beauty is you can't. So this is something that in my studies I found to be fascinating. In the mystical Kabbalah, Dion Fortune said, before you can ascend into spirit, you must descend into matter, which presupposes the mastery of the physical must come as you want to ascend into the ultimate spiritual realm.
Have you found that to be true?
Truth has so many different angles, right? And yes, the way I have interpreted it is I have been able to utilize the physical actualizations of certain things to measure my internal mastery. If there's something external that's not working out for me, I look inside and say, what's going on inside that's preventing me from getting what I want outside? And then I also look the other way and say, well, if I'm not feeling a certain way, if something inside's not working out in a certain way, something outside needs to be rearranged.
As without, so within. There you go.
Yes.
Fascinating. Fascinating. I've actually never thought about that. About turning that pyramid upside down, but it personally makes a lot of sense to me. So I actually am more driven by self-development and self-actualization than I am by basic needs, frankly. So
yeah.
Sort of the other way around for me.
That's where true power comes in. Really, a lot of people would say. Because when you focus on that, all the other needs are taken care of. I mean, before all of this, before I went to my very first training, I got a call. My friend heard that I signed up for a training. And he knew I didn't have a lot of cash. So he's like, how did you even afford this training? I was like, I borrowed some money. And I also used my credit card. And then this and that. My friend's like, that's crazy, man. Like, you should save that money. You have needs. You got to pay rent. And truthfully, that month I didn't have money for rent. So, yet, my need for the self-actualization was so much greater than even paying rent at that month. And I found myself, it's not even been 10 years yet. I found myself in a completely different world and reality, whereas my friend who called me lives in the same exact world that he did back then.
Exactly. I think that's fascinating. That's a really, really fascinating experience. Did that affirm you as well to stay on this path and to create upgrade?
Yeah, so one of the things, going back to the formula, the 3 steps that we talk about in resolution, I found a way to do this systematically. So it's not just a hopefully it works out mentality, because we all still need the basic needs, but I didn't want to forego my self-actualization and that speed. So I found a way, and it's a way that allows me to be able to set massive goals and have rewards attached to them, while my mind will not challenge me and resist going for them. And if there was, I have a way of resolving it. So step 1 was designing what I want and the rewards, attaching it to each other, creating a chain of pleasure. Step 2 is resolving anything that comes up. So I've developed 3 to 4 different formulas to specifically remove these negative emotions, self-talk, or different things that come up. And during this resolution process, your mind becomes totally agreeable to your new goals and your new desires and new wants. And instead of, because some people say, hey, you shouldn't want, right? The old Buddhist teaching of if you want, that means you have a lack. And that presupposes, and it's actually one of the things that they preach not to have, is to have desire. But the problem is if we look at Buddhism in general, which is, predominantly one of the religions that I grew up around, what I observed was the prince at the time that supposedly became Buddha observed the suffering in his people. And this Buddhism came about. But the suffering didn't end because of Buddhism. They just learned to be okay with it. That's not something I'm interested in. I'm interested in actually changing the planet. Just being okay with the current condition is a very passive way of living. So to me, I needed something that was, okay, I can be okay with it, but I still got to change it. Can we be in a state where I'm totally okay and at peace, not detached and dissociated, but still creating a force that allows the change to happen? And I realized pleasure is the key, because right now the world is being driven by a lot of pain. We have to flip that and change it to pleasure, and then resolving any pain that comes up. Because humans, when you tell them about pleasure, they feel like they don't deserve it. And so when I just got off a call. I was like, hey, how are you doing? And the person said, better than I deserve to. I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? There's a program inside of his mind that says this is what he deserves to be doing, or how well he's doing, but now he's doing better than what he believes he deserves to be doing. And humans find funny ways to bringing themselves back down to where they believe they deserve.
Interesting. Yeah, don't we?
We need to stop doing that. How do we stop doing that, William? Can you teach us?
I think the solution would be to feel deserving of everything and beyond.
I like saying and beyond.
Do some people get something out of identifying with maybe a martyr archetype or the self-serving? Because when I think about myself, I'm like, you know what? One of the reasons I'm stuck in this is because I actually do get something out of feeling like I do everything myself. Look how giving I am. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted because all I do is give, give, give. I'm getting something out of it, but I don't know what. Is there another archetype that we could sort of reimagine ourselves as? Or how would you guide somebody who maybe has spent too long identifying with a martyr archetype?
Yeah. You guys are great interviewers, asking just all the best questions. I appreciate that. It's much more fun to talk to people who aren't just going off a list and have very intelligent questions. So definitely appreciate that. The martyr and the hero archetype. Two different ones, but their archetypes are very related. The martyr is the hero who is suffering from a lot of unfortunate things, right? So they're essentially coming from the same archetype, but having different outcomes. Or it's just at different points of their journey, right? The hero's journey, though, has been a virus for as long as we remember. From, if you look at the micro, right, when we were growing up, what kind of movie plot do they have in Disney movies? Starting with a dead parent or two, and then somebody want to take everything they have, and it's just awful, 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 awful. And then finally, they have a happy ever after, but it still felt like it wasn't easy. And it gets repeated for decades. And then now, and as someone become an adult, you still see the same plot. Because when was the last time we went to the theater or watched a movie and it's like this person, this guy or this lady, main character, wins in the beginning, wins all the way through, wins all the way to the end, and beats every enemy or monster or everything, and simply does not get hurt or feels no pain, and the whole time just laughs it through. Even in comedies, we don't get those. So the media industry has programmed us, indoctrinated us to this hero's journey. And then we share this with our children and the children of the future. And we go to school, the teachers do the same. So children who grew up in this environment has a self-actualizing, I would say, strategy for pain. They find themselves, in order to feel important and that they are worth something, they have to have experienced pain, sacrifice, right? So the premise of this is, I would say, the answer to what you're saying. But then how do we solve that? The archetype we need to switch to needs to be the emperor or the empress or even the wizard. That would be... There's a helicopter flying by. I don't know if you guys hear that. You didn't hear that? That's good.
Yeah,
that
we heard it. It's interesting. It came on just while we were talking about this too.
When you said wizard, emperor, yeah, exactly. Magician, cue helicopter.
Yeah. These people don't have to travel by car. Yeah.
But
it sounds like you're saying we can look to the tarot or other archetypes. We don't have to go to who is it, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey? Is that what you're referencing?
Oh yeah, I mean he brought hero's journey to the center of entertainment. But the hero's journey is great for entertainment, not great for living. Right. People made the mistake of thinking I should live like the movies. But no, the chances are they won't survive, or that they won't like it. And so Joseph Campbell did phenomenal work exploring and breaking down what happens so we could avoid it, I would say. Yes, the tarot is interesting because if you look at the history of it, it's a deck that contains secrets from throughout the ages, from different cultures. So the symbology behind them is far beyond what they're claiming to be, or what some people claim them to be, right? So there's a lot more inside of it. And oftentimes, think of it like an index card. Like, if you read any text, there's the content page and the index telling you where to read what, but where's the content?
So you're the expert in tarot, so...
Oh, I don't know. I think you have to spend 30 years meditating on the symbols and then maybe you figure it out. Maybe.
But it's all in the story. It's all in the story, and we grasp that as being part of us.
So the cool thing is there are some books that are written on these symbology extensively. So Carl Jung was someone who spent a lot of time digging into these different symbols inside of these archetypes. And his students actually spent extensive time writing about the symbology and the meanings behind these archetypes that came out of fairy tales. And so there are literally books that are this thick written about the symbols behind them. I took some digging to find them, but they're actually on Amazon. I can send them to you guys after. These are
Super.
books that, for example, if you look at Cinderella, are the evil mothers really the evil mothers? Or are they all programs in the unconscious mind resisting what we desire? Cinderella wants to marry the prince. She didn't feel deserving. So this whole thing could have been a fantasy, a battle inside her mind.
And she suffers. She suffers under the evil stepmother. So then we feel she deserves the prince. How could she not? If she didn't suffer, we wouldn't grant her that wish so easily.
Yeah, imagine she was just born and she's pretty, lived a great life, and then married the prince. Like, there's no story, right?
That's not all right. That's not okay.
It wouldn't be Cinderella.
Suffer.
You want to punch her in the face. That's too easy. Why does she have it so easy?
Yeah, and so that's, if you were the emperor or the empress, the queen, you'd be like, I can't have the population take my power. I need to find a way to make sure the population, make sure their life is hard and they're distracted by the hardship of life that's actually illusionary, so I can keep my power and they can do my work for me.
Is there an Illuminati in any of this messaging by the
Don't know.
Do they even exist, Diana? Come on.
What I do know,
that's the sense of giving our power away to something else.
I mean, I don't know. What I do know is it's human nature in a sense. If there were generational trauma involved, for example, the generational trauma that the emperors experience, the kings and queens of the past experience, are different than the rest of us, right? Think about a brother will fight a brother for the throne. A sister and a brother will fight for the throne. They will do whatever it took. And there are so many of those stories, even within the same century. You pick one century out of the, medieval time, you'd be like, how many killing was there between siblings just for the throne? So the trauma that get passed down through their DNAs to the next generation was to repeat the same trauma. And so they, of course, don't want if their siblings are already trying to take their position, why would they want the population involved? They want nobody fighting for the throne.
Well,
I think it's just human nature.
Right. So, it's really deep here. This is a lot more than just, than there's more complexity in your program than I imagine. And these are really deep scars that sort of exist throughout our entire society, whether it's just here in the United States or around the world.
Around the world.
Earth.
Yeah, because if we dig into genealogy just really fast, you'll find that every one of us have some sort of shared common ancestors. And they may not be the same ancestors, but I looked at my wife's genealogy that her grandmother spent decades doing. I mean, literally decades. And she's obsessed because every time I see her, we talk about genealogy. And so I got into my wife's account that her grandmother made for her. And I kept going up the family tree, and I went all the way back to Attila the Hun. I went all the way back to, there was a princess from China. I'm like, wait, what? You got some Chinese princess in you. And I mean, thousands of years ago, right? But how they put the tree together, I realized, wait a second, how many of those stories just get compounded over time, passed down. And so we share a lot of similar traits when it comes to the hero's journey. And there's a way to eradicate that, though. And that's part of what we do at Upgrade. It's to remove that hero's journey and install a brand new archetype. Because archetypes are essentially truths that exist beyond space-time, beyond even personality. It's a way in which we interact with the physical and the non-physical world.
So we're very into genealogy and our ancestral trauma here on the podcast. And it seems like a big challenge to resolve things as supposedly far back as Attila the Hun. And Lexi and I have both done a lot of research on our own families, and we find that, I certainly find in my own that I'm carrying forth a lot of the traits that I was unaware of until just recently, from centuries ago. So how easy, I mean, is it easy? And the understanding that I have on a deeper level is that once we resolve these things for ourselves, we resolve these things for all generations.
Yeah, so there was a concept that I was exposed to and I began to test that was fascinating to me, was that the present moment is a projection of the past and the future together. Like a hologram. In order for the hologram to form, there needs to be two images being projected onto one image to have that complete hologram. Or, a simpler one would be like if we go to IMAX theater, you see two projectors projecting to get that big image. The present time is a projection of the past and the future. So in order to change the present time, we need to change the source of that projection.
But if the source of that projection, is it just the past, so to speak? And is it the future? Is it both to create that present? So if it's one
both.
or the other, or do you change both?
They call it interference pattern. The present, I would say they call it interference pattern of the past and the future. The past and the future are interfacing with each other, creating the present. So to change the present, one must change the past and the future. People say that you only have control of the present moment. What they don't understand is they're thinking very physically. Yeah, of course you physically can move your chair around and do some stuff. You can drive around, go to different places. But all of that is physical interaction with a so-called physical world, which is really like maybe 1% of the actual reality. Because how much do we not see or hear or feel, right? That is actually part of the reality. Just looking at the light spectrum, we only see a very teeny percentage. So 99% of the actual reality we live in is non-physical. The key is, how do we interact with that? And the heroes or the martyrs archetype predominantly interacts with the physical world, which is a small teeny sliver of reality. That's why they feel so helpless, and they have to gain strength in the physical to fight or flight. They're constantly battling reality, and it seems that they're against the world, or the world's against them, right? That's because they are not aware that the forces of reality lies beyond the world that we can see. And so that's why the importance of the magician or the wizard archetype and the emperor or empress archetype, those are the ones that we got to consider if we want to leverage the forces beyond the physical, because that's actually the reality we live in.
So how do you tell your Forbes or your high-end clients that that's what how reality really is? How does that go down?
Oh, so simply the interpretation of time based on physics is that we're not living in a locally real reality. So meaning our current time frame is simply a projection. So a good way to explain it is you plug a computer into a projector and it projects onto a screen. We all do that in business meetings. But what happens is if you take that same setup to the 1800s, nobody would know how to change what's on the screen besides going to mess with the screen. But the screen is simply a place that receives the projection. The source of that projection comes from the laptop. But people in the old days wouldn't know. We do. We know how to change what's on the laptop. Well, it's time that our understanding of the mind gets updated. Also, this is one of the best ways to explain our reality is merely a projection. And in order to change what's going on in the so-called reality, this current moment, we have to change what's going on inside. And what's going on inside, including the past and the future, is interacting with each other to create the present. So in simple words, I have to change my memory of the past and my perception of the future. I have to resolve what's in the past, and I have to have the resolve to create the life that I design.
So there's something that you use in your program called 100 Wishes. Is that right? If I recall this correctly.
100 things and 100 experiences.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that part of this, changing the future and the past with that? Is that a tool that you use?
Yeah, so most people focus too much on what they don't want with majority of their time. So the mind is bound to create what we saturate it with, the kind of thoughts and emotions. And so the thoughts that we fill our mind with may seem easier to change, but it's actually easier to change the emotions. It's the opposite of what people think. The emotions is just a message, a notification. You get the message, it goes away. It's like, modern world says, it's the saturated fat rather than the seed oil that's actually causing heart disease. Or it's the sugar, right? Well, no, they didn't say it's the sugar. They actually, if they told us that, that'd be good. But no, they said it's the fat. But it's really the sugar, right? So it's also the same thing here. They say, oh, it's the emotions. No, it's the thoughts. Let me explain. The emotions you can resolve extremely easily. Our protocol takes 30 seconds to remove an emotion. And it's literally like drag and drop into a trash can and it's gone. What happens with thoughts is thoughts are sometimes from the insides, sometimes from the outside, and sometimes from worlds beyond. And so you have to learn how to filter the thoughts and generate thoughts proficiently and strategically, so your thought serves you. And these thoughts function as little mini micro creations. If we focus on it too much, these little micro creations become more and more and more powerful. And then if we somehow don't understand our mind works, which majority of the world doesn't, they slip into an altered state, which we do all the time, and it passes through the portal into the physical. That's why events that people don't want happen in their life, because they're not in control of the little teeny micro creations in their mind. They slip into an altered state. It slips through the portal into the physical. I mean, that's a more literal way of explaining it. But another way that I can explain it is the thoughts that we have in our mind. If we control it, if we learn how to design what we want, then we have control over our thoughts. If we just let it do whatever it does, we're likely receiving thoughts also by osmosis, by those around us and society and what's being broadcast. And then we become like a 3D printer of what's being broadcasted.
Trash in, trash out.
It sounds like it.
Or beauty in, beauty out. Or wealth in, wealth out.
Yeah. The flow.
Okay, so you say you can get through these emotions in 30 seconds, William. Would you want to run us through that? I'm super curious.
Sure. Yeah, I have developed quite a few protocols. This is one of the simplest ones. Do you have an emotion you want to remove? Is there something that you're worried about in the future?
Everything. All the things.
Yeah, right? Everything.
All of the above.
Yeah? For both of you? There's a feeling of worry about something. What's the most intense worry that you have?
The world mysteriously combusting because humans did such a bad job taking care of it.
I meet these people sometimes and I'm like, hey, how do you make a profit out of your company? Like, because they manage certain funds. And it's not out of, disdain towards the world or dislike or any negative emotion. They're just running on logic. And their answer is, if the economy goes down as far as we predict, then my fund expands 100x. We make 100x more money. So there are people that are winning.
That explains a lot. Say that again.
I'm not saying everybody, right? I'm saying some people bet against it, some people bet for it. So that we live in a world that's somewhat dichotomized, very, very polarized. But the life of someone who experiences, I would say the archetype of the hero is a very polarized life. But the life of the emperor or the empress or the wizard is not polarized. They begin to see everything as one. So if there's something that you're worried about, we're going to resolve this in literally the next 30 seconds. You'll find that the outcome is you begin to see the world differently. As quickly as 30 seconds. Let me ask you this. So you have this worry, right? And you've picked the most intense worry that you can pick. Can you identify what that worry is?
Me? Diana.
Both.
Oh, I don't know. I just switched to another worry is that what if I didn't rescue the latest stray cat that's coming to my porch and something awful happens to him? And now I'm
Oh, yeah, that's not fun.
No. Diana.
But that is a little bit of the hero's journey. I mean, you're going out of your way. There's a sense of anxiety that if you don't do your role, whether it's to save the world or save the cat, am I right? Am I pointing that a little bit? There's a sense of sacrament there that's going on.
Yeah, what about you, Diana?
What anxiety do I have? Which one? I kind of agree with, I almost said Alexandra, with Lexi about the sense of, I don't feel the world's going to implode, but there's certainly a lot of things going on, and it's a sense that we're really aware of it, being in this spiritual community of where you see things sort of, there's massive tornadoes in Omaha, Nebraska, near where I grew up. There's floods in Saudi Arabia. There's poverty. There's, as I'm speaking, I'm really focusing on the negative. There's also people rescuing horses, rescuing cats. They're having beautiful family ventures, people who are doing amazing entrepreneurial ventures and helping other people with those ventures. So it's that sense of maybe I'm not sure where the cycle is at the moment and where do we all belong.
Perfect. If you could use your free hand and point at where that feeling is inside your body, when you think about that worry, where is that feeling? Just point. Don't think about it. Point for me.
Well, it's off camera, but it's in my sacral.
Oh, got it. Got it. What about you, Lexi? Got it. Okay. Now, I want you to tell me what color it is. What about you, Diana?
Funnily enough, it's green, which is actually my favorite color.
Okay, size and shape?
It's a band.
Got it. Material and texture?
Mine is silk.
Got it. Now, I want you to imagine, if you are safe to do so, to close your eyes for a second and just reach in and reach into the core of that and squeeze it just a little bit, and the feeling should intensify just a little bit. It's connected to the roots of all of those things that are, yeah, you got it? You squeeze it, you should feel that intensify if you imagine doing that. And you can actually reach in with your hand and imagine your hand actually going in. Yeah? You feel that same thing too, Lexi?
Yeah, I just realized it's where my last hernia surgery was, oddly.
Interesting. Got it. Now, in 3 seconds, we're going to have you yank it out. But I want you to reach in again, grab onto the core, and notice how all of the neurology that is no longer serving you, that's connected to it, all the root causes, all the problems associated, lighting up and connected to it. And in 3 seconds, we're going to have you yank it out. In 3, 2, 1, pull it out and throw it away. You smell popcorn?
Ha! Yeah.
I'm just going to say with harm to none, because what I just pulled out is not a fun emotion. So let's just release it to the, I don't know, south.
Black hole.
Yep.
It's gone.
Gone.
Okay. Now, when you think about the status of the world, how do you feel now instead?
Like a piece of it, not like I'm Atlas with it on my back.
Have peace with it. What about you, Diana?
Sort of see it like it's a magical world. Beautiful, magical world.
See, it really only took 3 seconds, but I had to spend
Wow.
30 seconds describing and figuring out what color it is.
It's interesting. I have to say, once I pulled it out, and I described it actually in a very pretty way. It was green and silky, because when I pulled it out, when I put my hand in the area, there was all this dirt, and it was really ugly and rooted, and there's a lot of gnarliness associated with it. My sense was that it's it looks good, but underneath it all, there's a lot of evil, actually.
Now imagine if we were able to remove that for the majority of the population, how they would feel about the world and how the world would be. See, it's not really possible to upgrade humanity if the process took 5 hours. Because to do that for billions of people. But 3 seconds, 30 seconds. Yeah.
Do that. I mean, I'd like to think we could do that. You could certainly do that around the world and everybody jump online for 30 seconds. Interesting. And as we change ourselves, I mean, obviously, as we change ourselves, we change each other.
Of course. Yep. One of the biggest things is if the world is a mirror, then others' healing would be I am healing. If other people are taking advantage of other people, then what am I doing to take advantage of myself?
Oh.
If people are at war with each other, what part of me is at war with another part of me? And it's unjustified.
Do you do this daily for yourself?
Which part?
Do you ever do a little intake of yourself on a daily basis? Like, where are you at with, do you feel that there's, you're at war with anything? Do you look at war and say, am I at war with myself? Or do you just recognize it as part of the news today and I'm not at war with myself? I don't relate to that.
I think that it would be a paradox. Although I'm not at war with myself, I am at war with myself. That's why what I see outside, even if I put my head in the sand and I say that I don't see it and it doesn't happen, it's happening. So I'm part of the creation or creative process of the reality that we are in. And at the same time, so many people say we're just observers, but that's what the power of the observer is.
I feel like I'm on a jetpack right now. I do. I was just having this reflection that somebody asked me about kind of what we do, Lexi, in the podcast and so on. And I was just saying, we're just observers. We're just observers on this planet at the moment. We're just sort of like sharing what other experts have actually found to be true. We're really just observers. And since both of our backgrounds are in media and entertainment, that just seems like that fits. But there's actually power in being the observer.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was feeling that really as an observer, you're just observing. You're not really interacting. You're not really making a difference on a physical level or on a different kind of level. But as an observer, you actually do have an enormous amount of power.
Yeah. We're creating at the speed of observation.
Okay. That's amazing.
I know. I really want to sign up for, was it like rectification or?
Oh, resolution.
That's the one. Yeah. So if people want to sign up for resolution or they want to work with you, how do they find you?
Oh, yeah, that's easy. So they can go to our website. It's called upgrade.com, but upgrade is spelled as UPGRD. Or people can go to our Instagram and they'll find that there's a link on our Instagram. They can follow myself or my company. My Instagram is william.upgrade. William.upgrade. And once again, upgrade is spelled as UPGRD. And what they'll find is there's a link that has how they can join us in the resolution. And the resolution program is great. It's like first time in the history of Upgrade that we've made something this affordable. Because previously, with the audience that we were targeting and serving, it was very specifically priced. But we know that we couldn't help the world if we don't make something completely available for just about anyone. Because we have people from like certain parts of Africa or different parts of the world that reach out. They're like, hey, I want to take your course. Can't afford it though. And so resolution program has become something that is affordable. There's like a monthly program. People have access and we'll have group coaching calls. And then we'll actually continue to add new things. And then some people can even sign up for a yearly program if they pay for a yearly program, we actually include a 1-day immersive event called Resolution Day. So people can come out. We actually help them resolve a exhaustive list of stuff.
That sounds efficient.
That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
Is that like spa day?
I mean, think
That's
about
great.
what we did in 30 seconds or in 3 seconds. Imagine spending 6 hours just resolving stuff. But then you walk away also with the skills to resolve it for other people.
Right. And for myself, I must say, I mean, obviously there's probably other things that I'm not talking about at the moment, but you just gave me a technique that I can use in 3 seconds to resolve whenever I become aware of it or whenever I go into it.
Yeah, the philosophy is very different with us because you go to, in the last 5 decades, we have a lot of different personal development things that come out of the US and different places. And they're predominantly do 4 and do 2 because you feel good. And then you go home, you're like, what do I do now? And so and that's great. That's a model for helping people with what they need for a brief period of time. But it doesn't actually generate a global shift. And for us, we need to give away the tools. So for us to do an immersive event, it's not really for us to do it for you. We're going to spend the day doing it for you, but we're going to teach you how to do it with each other. So then by the time you leave, you have a lifelong skill that you can use. I mean, resolving it for children. I just did it for my son the other night. I was like, hey, I noticed he was upset. I point at him, at his body. I'm like, where is it? He's like, oh, it's right here. And I was like, you know what to do? He's like, yep. Just yank it out and it's gone, right? That's just one of the many techniques. We have so many variations that we teach, and some deals with much more traumatic or much more complex emotions. That being said, it's fast.
Does this all take place in Scottsdale, or are you doing this in different locations?
So we're doing it in Scottsdale at the moment. I'm thinking about expanding it to the East Coast, also in Europe. Just a matter of getting a location. We have a lot of people from the East Coast and all over the world flying into Scottsdale because it's got a different energy here, and it's convenient. Where are you guys located again?
We're
LA.
both in the greater
Area.
LA.
Yeah.
Oh, nice
I'm
and
on one
close.
side of LA. She's on the other side.
Nice and close. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Scottsdale's not far off.
Yeah.
And it does have a certain energy about it. I agree.
There is something about the desert.
Yeah, definitely. Any other question for me?
No, I know. We're already pushing the boundary here on time.
Just thank you so much. This was amazing.
Yeah.
No, I was
again.
super happy to be with you guys today.
We are grateful to you. I think our listeners get so much out of this. It's profound.
Thank you. I think that if I may leave one more thing with the listeners and with you guys that may be of use, is that one of the key things with all of this is making a decision that our reality is the way we want. So the words, the thoughts that we use to describe reality does not actually describe like an observer would, right? An observer typically would describe their reality. Hey, this is a reality that we're in. I got nothing to do with it. I'm just watching. But what we have found through the latest achievements in physics and other understandings from even way back in the ancient time, and being able to aggregate those thoughts and understandings, we begin to notice our reality is not being described, it's being defined. So the words we use and the thoughts we use, we're not describing, we're defining our reality. And that definition is actually creating what's going on. So the more I can convince you or the listeners to describe your reality the way you want it by design, the more we can define this reality in our favor.
I love that. I'm going to be sure that we focus on that. Thank you so much, William.
Thank you for having me.